Australians are likely to spend an extra $3 to $4 billion this month as Black Friday and Cyber Monday pre-Christmas sales test our wallets and our capacity to absorb prices. Our business editor, Ross Greenwood, is here to explain. Ross, good morning to you. This is something of a test for the economy, isn't it, given the big rise in interest rates, energy and the cost of goods?
Well, it really is, Pete. I mean, this is where the test becomes significant for the economy. Can Australians keep their spending going? Just to recap, Australians have had record retail sales for each of the last 9 months, notwithstanding energy prices, notwithstanding rising interest rates as well. But there's a point at which that all stops. And the interesting part about this is these Black Friday sales going into Cyber Monday are now the biggest shopping event of the year. They've actually overtaken what happens on Boxing Day. So this is a little example for you. Going back to last year, this is the last 12 months of 2021 leading into November sales. And you can see what happened in November when effectively Australians spent more than $33 billion in that month alone. Now, it can be affected by COVID. It can be affected by a whole bunch of things. But what it shows last year is that Australians have a propensity to spend pre-Christmas and try and pick up sales. That is precisely the reason why the retailers gear themselves for this event. But the second part about this also is that the retailers themselves, in many cases, have found themselves overstocked. Kogan is one, for example. Its share price took off the other day, mainly because it had said that its actual inventory in its warehouses had started to decline. It had been very full. And so one of the issues here for retailers is to try and move that stock out while they can and stimulate the wallets of Australians.
OK, but what about all those supply chain issues, Ross, that we heard about during the pandemic? Surely China's COVID zero policy is having an impact there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you've only got to go and look at one place, the Foxconn factory that produces 70% of the iPhones around the world. And it's COVID zero policy right now. And also the fact that workers walked off the job and walked away because they were worried about COVID outbreaks inside that factory and of being locked out. And so therefore financial incentives have had to be given to those people to come back. Now, this has been well documented, but the issue is that if you can't get the iPhones out of the country because you simply can't get them made, guess what? There's a shortage of supply. Prices tend to go up under those circumstances. So really this is about the whole factor that COVID zero and many of our manufactured goods do come from China. And even though things had eased up quite a lot in other countries, in China it's still pretty tight. And of course they're still trying to keep their factories open and to maintain that supply for their own economy, which itself has shown signs of slowing over the past 12 months as well.
OK, bring it home to Australia, Ross. You're saying we have absorbed the price rise as well so far, but with interest rates still on the up, how long will that last before most people feel genuine financial pain?
So this is the $64 question. It is just at what point do these interest rate rises, and there's going to be more of them coming, at what point does it actually hit the household sector? Given, number one, that the government collects half of its revenue from households, from PAYG taxpayers, given the fact that the retail industry and home building sectors are so important. So this is household savings ratios in Australia. You can see during the pandemic, they shot up through the roof and they've stayed relatively high in historic terms. But you can see they're starting to come down as these interest rates and as energy bills have started to increase during this year. Now, the issue is here, anything under 5% is probably going to be a little alarming in regards to the household pain. That's when you're going to know. That's sometime in the middle of next year, and that is also probably the time at which the Reserve Bank is going to ease off big time in terms of interest rate rises, because they will recognise that their job is done in trying to bring this inflation rate back down to between 2 and 3%.
So all this plays into the interest rate settings of the Reserve Bank, but there are reports today that in future, Ross, the Reserve Bank board may lose its ultimate power to set interest rates.
So this is interesting, Pete, because remember that Jim Chalmers, one of the first things that he did as the Treasurer when Labor came into power was to create a review into the Reserve Bank. It had been called for many people in regards to many of the settings that the Reserve Bank and the communication of the Reserve Bank as well. Well, this review board yesterday for the first time went public about what it's seeing. One of the suggestions that's been put to them is that maybe the Reserve Bank board be split. What it says is ultimately try to run the Reserve Bank itself, and its staff and all of its various functions. Well, that's one thing. But then trying to do that and on top of that also run the interest rate settings of Australia, that's not something that happens in the United States, where there's a separate board, a separate panel that actually sets the interest rates as compared with what actually runs the Federal Reserve. So that's one suggestion here in Australia, and you get a sense that that might have found some traction with this review board.
On the pro side, it's really a question of clarity of roles and responsibilities and having the right people assigned to the right job, as well as kind of having a better ability to have an enterprise-wide view of operational governance like a regular board would do, while at the same time allowing the monetary policy group or the monetary policy board to really focus on those decisions and have the time that they need.
Yeah, Caroline Wilkins there, formerly the Bank of Canada, now on the Monetary Policy Committee for the Bank of England, and that could very well be the way in which we see it in the future here in Australia as well.
All right, Ross Greenwood, good to see you.